I don't know why that changed in the middle of, I guess the screen share took over my audio settings. So yeah, let's get started. So this session, I'll be discussing a little bit about the MuckRock API. Also discuss a data set that we have, trying to analyze the last year of public records requests that were filed on MuckRock Requests. And yeah, just trying to open up into a little bit of a collaborative session where we can kind of dive into the data and see if we can get any um, data points that we can use to either visualize or make something that kind of resembles Spotify Unwrapped. Again, my name is Sunny Ibrahimovic. I'm the developer experience engineer at MuckRock. So first, what is MuckRock? We're a three-part organization, now kind of a four-part organization. This slide needs to be updated, but since we've recently merged with an organization called the Sunlight. So one part of our organization is FOIA, so public records. The idea that government records are public. We fund them, and therefore we should have access to them, maximizes transparency. MuckRock Requests is a platform that allows you to file, track, and use these public records from across the United States. We have an editorial team that does our own original reporting. And then we also have various tools like MuckRock Requests. We have accounts, which is our login service, which allows you to log into MuckRock Requests, Document Cloud, and several other tools that we're adding to our set. So yeah, we build infrastructure for accountability. We advocate for public records and transparency laws, and we have our own original editorial team as well. So for today's session, we do have a collaborative code space. This is a repo which you can file issues with and also make pull requests towards, but it also for now just contains the data set that we'll be talking about today. It also allows you to interact with that data set with some pre-installed things like Python and a couple different libraries that you can use to interact with the data set. Things like Pandas, Seaborn, other data visualization libraries, as well as some LLM tools. So yeah, everything's pre-installed on there. The one thing is that it's installed with UV. So if you run something like Python and you want to use Pandas, you'll want to run UV run Python 3, and that gets you access to all of those libraries that come in pre-installed on the code space. So with the link to the slides, you can click on the code space link, and then you click on code, and then create code space on main, and you can follow along later with some of the requests that I'll be making for the Unwrapped. So I want to do first a brief introduction for folks who are completely unfamiliar with our API for MuckRock Requests, kind of the syntax, how things work, how to authenticate, and then we can dive into kind of the data set that we've already pulled. So what does the API allow you to do? It allows you to search requests filed on MuckRock with various filters. It allows you to retrieve communications and files that were posted to a request. These are communications with agencies or communications that are user-made with an agency. It allows you to query our jurisdiction and agency databases to figure out where you might want to file or where a request was filed in the past. And of course, it also allows you to file public records requests or create requests. This assumes that you have a MuckRock request account with some credits on your account. So the API is agnostic in general. You can use it without using Python, but we do have a wrapper for the API that allows you to more cleanly interface with the API without worrying about things like authentication tokens or structuring the request in the exact format that the API is expecting. We do have full documentation. So if you click on the full documentation link there, it also does give you a overview of like each endpoint and kind of what a request looks like. what expected responses you're expecting to receive, and then any parameters or fields that are available for each endpoint. You can install this locally. If you don't want to use the code space, you can, of course, use pip to install it. It already does come pre-installed on the code space, so you don't have to run the install command. So if you're on the code space, Python MuckRock is already there. You can get started with the authentication and starting out with some requests. So let's get a little more familiar. The Python MuckRock, the wrapper has an authentication layer already built in. It handles all the token management for you, so you don't have to like refresh tokens every once in a while. It does if it completely expires, you will have to re-authenticate. Like if you close a session and open it again, you would have to authenticate. But generally, you authenticate with your username and password. If you're publishing code anywhere, I always advise folks to store those as environment variables. If you're just running something locally on your computer and you don't ever plan on publishing it, you can just type in your username and password and authenticate with the MuckRock servers, and that gets you a client which you can use to interact with each of our endpoints. So diving into a couple endpoints, of course, the big one that we'll be talking about today is the requests endpoint. So you can use the requests endpoint. We have a list, create, and retrieve operation for each of for that endpoint. So you can just query for requests that already exist by using the list one. You can add optional parameters. For example, if you wanted to get only the requests that were already completed, you can use the status filter. So you can do status equals done, which gives you all the requests that have already been completed. You can do a broad text search. So this text search looks at the title and the requested docs, which is the parameter, which basically is like what is the actual public records request somebody filed, the language for that request. It looks at that and does a text search. So you can search more specifically than just all requests that are completed. You can look for specific things that have specific keywords. So like this one has a search for requests that contain the word recipe, which I think there was like 5 the last time I checked. You can also, this was introduced earlier this week, you can filter requests by when they were filed. You can do a greater than or equals to or less than or equals to options. So if you wanted to find the requests that were submitted since January 1st, this is how you would be able to do so. The first part of the code is just basically structuring the format for what the datetime looks like, what the API is expecting a datetime to look like. And then you can do a list operation on the request endpoint, and you can query based on when the request was submitted. So this is telling me I want to find requests that were submitted after this cutoff date. And if you were querying your own requests, you could get the ones that were embargoed or permanently embargoed if you have requests of that nature. But since I'm just broadly searching for requests across the site, public ones in this instance, I am going to use the filter embargo status, and I'm going to say I only want public requests that were published on MuckRock Requests in the last year. And then you can specify ordering. So if I wanted to get a list and have it returned by the specific date, I can do it with the datetime submitted ordering. So each request has a title, the request language, which is known as requested docs, a status, which can be complete, needs fixing. There's like various potential statuses. You can look at the documentation for the full list. It also includes the communications tied to the request and a couple more fields. So if we grab a single request, we can inspect more about each individual request. We can look at what the request ID is, what the title of the request is, whether or not it's complete, and then what the actual request language for that particular request is by using this dot notation here to specify the parameter for each request. Any questions really quickly about authentication with the Python MuckRock library, or what a request looks like, doing a search for requests or retrieving a single request? If anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute because I can't view the chat while I'm screen sharing. Otherwise, I'll move forward. All right. So moving a little deeper, I promise some of this stuff is relevant for later and how we're going to answer the questions that I propose toward the end. So jurisdictions are basically they're local, state, or federal entities that an agency belongs to. So each request, when you file a request, you have to specify what agency you want that request to go to, and then each agency has its respective jurisdiction. So let's say I want to file a request to the Illinois State Police. I would have its agency, which has its own endpoint, and that agency would have the Illinois State Police would have a jurisdiction, which is Illinois. And then local and state agencies generally follow state public records laws, and then the federal one follows the FOIA Act. So we can filter for our state jurisdictions using the list. So similar to requests, they also have list and retrieve. They do not have a create operation, however. We can filter by a jurisdiction by its name, and then we can also filter requests by which jurisdiction they belong to. So if we know that the jurisdiction ID of 1 belongs to the state of Massachusetts, we can see which requests were filed in Massachusetts that contain the word surveillance by doing a list request on the request endpoint with these fields, with the search parameter and specifying the jurisdiction ID. I mentioned agencies already, but agencies are where we actually want to file a request. So if we intend on filing a request using the API, we need to know what the ID of the agency or agencies that we want to file with. It does support multi-requests, which basically allows you to file a public records request to multiple agencies at the same time. So you can specify more than one agency ID when you're creating a request. So if I wanted to just retrieve a single agency by its ID, I can retrieve it with just the ID field passed in. It gives me access to various fields on that agency object. So I can say, like, what is the agency name? What is the agency's jurisdiction? So on and so forth. Similarly, if I wanted to do a search by a name for a agency, I could do something like a partial text search. So filtering state agencies is relatively easy. I can also combine queries, so I can do things like a partial search for all the police agencies and then specify a jurisdiction ID on the agency search. So it returns to me all the agencies in that jurisdiction that have the word police in it. This one would be all the police agencies in the state of Massachusetts, because the state of Massachusetts is jurisdiction ID 1. Yeah, this one is just going over like how to retrieve a specific jurisdiction. and then retrieving its parent. Basically, the parent is, let's say you have a local jurisdiction or an agency with a local jurisdiction, and you want to find what what the parent one is, to find out which actual state, like for example, the Springfield Police Department is in. You would have to look at the parent, which would tell you that that jurisdiction is in Massachusetts. Okay, so organizations and your user, this comes up a little bit later in our queries, because one of these, you only have access to your own user in the general MuckRock API. But for some of the staff users, we are able to pull other user information. So, but if I wanted to file a request, I do actually need to know my own user ID as well as what organizations I belong to, so that I can, when I create my request, that I can specify which organization I want to file it under. This is for billing purposes. If I'm a member of multiple organizations, I know exactly who I'm going to be using the request credit from, and yeah, who I want that request tied to. And then filing a request, you need at least 4 different fields. There's a couple other optional ones, but you need the title, you need request language, like what you actually want to, what kind of documents you actually want to request for. And then I mentioned the organization ID. You need to specify an organization ID. This is for that billing purpose. And then you need the IDs of the agencies that you want to file the request with. Again, it can be a list. If you want to do a multi-request and you have enough allocated credits, you can file a request to multiple agencies at once. But generally, you would provide one. All right, so this is where I want to kind of open up a more collaborative portion. So I will, after this slide, I will move into our code space, where I'll encourage folks to kind of, if you have any answers to any of these questions, I'm free to pass off the screen share. If you have a matching query that kind of, resolves the question at hand, or if we don't, I will walk through the answer to some of these. Some of these I've left intentionally open-ended because there can be more than one correct answer, and there can be different answers depending on how you solve the problem. But these are kind of the general questions I wanted to answer when thinking of this session for MuckRock Requests Unwrapped. Basically, I wanted to figure out generally how many requests were filed in 2025. These are public requests, so I'm not going to be worried about embargoed requests. I just want to see how many requests that are public were filed in 2025 so far, so to this day. How many requests that were filed in 2025 were also completed? Which 10 agencies kind of received the most public records requests? Number 4 is one that you all can't answer, but I will show you how you would be able to do so. Is who are the 10 most prolific filers on our service for the past year? Similarly, if we're talking about agencies that received a lot of requests, what agencies with more than 5 requests filed to them? So that means that they've had to have more than 5 requests received. Had the highest completion rates. I'm basically looking for agencies that kind of, received more than just one request and, actually responded to the request and they were marked as complete. And then what about agencies with more than 25 requests? Does that substantially change the answer to that question? I'm curious. And then of the top 25 agencies that received requests, how many of these were federal, state, or local agencies? So I have my suspicions based on some of the numbers I've ran to the earlier queries, but this one I've intentionally left open is how many, are people mostly filing public records requests on MuckRock to federal agencies? Are they filing to local agencies or state agencies, a mixture of, I want to know what the distribution is like. Giving the top 25 just gives me a general picture. It doesn't give me a picture of the whole landscape. I could probably do a more advanced data visualization where it would dive into how many requests each different state or locality received. And that would give me an even better breakdown. I encourage that as like a collaborative effort. And then can we extract some common themes from the requests that were filed this year? This one, again, I've also left completely open because you can do this many different ways. You can use something like scikit, which I've included in the repo as pre-installed. You can use an LLM and feed a portion of the requests to the LLM, assuming that it matches their context window and they can take that input. You can see which words will most commonly appear in the request. I did take an attempt at this, and I had to like filter out some of the request template language out of it in order to get more detail. Yeah, so I kind of want this to be a little bit more collaborative. So I'm gonna close out the presentation for now and then hop over into the code space. So give me 1 second. All right. So we're in the code space here. So if you did open your own code space, this is similar to what it would look like. Oh, of course. Let's see. That will restart. Give me 1 second troubleshooting this code space. Why suddenly crash? Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Just 1 more second. All right. All right. So yeah, this is the code space. It has several things pre-installed, several different libraries, including the Python MuckRock wrapper, and pandas, and a couple other helpful data visualization libraries. It also includes locally, you can see that it includes a CSV. This is an export of requests dated yesterday. So from January 1st, 2025 to yesterday at some point, I think in the afternoon, of all the public requests that were filed on MuckRock, and the information that was accessible about those requests via the API. The reason why I include this CSV is so that you can make a query to pull this information yourself. It just does take a lot of time. And if 10, 15 people are doing this at the same time, it can be somewhat resource intensive. So I just wanted to include this data set. Also just for posterity, if people wanted to take a look at the data set afterward as well. So if I wanted to open a Python shell, I can do uv run Python 3. And if I wanted to get started using the Python MuckRock client, I can do something like this. I've already set up my username and password as local environment variables, so I can just import them. So I'm going to do this is so I'm not typing my credentials on a recorded event in front of other people. And then I can create a client to authenticate with the server. So now I can make queries. So um, let's see. What do we want to do first? Let me hop back into the slide deck because I can't view both. Oh, I guess I can. First things first, I can actually just import pandas as well. Let's actually import it as a. Fine. Okay. And there we go. All right. And then I can create a data frame from the CSV that's here. Um, all right, so now I have it. This does answer one question already because it's the size of the data frame here, but how many requests were filed in the last year is the size of this data frame because each request is a row. So it's 9,715 public requests were filed as of the time that this data set was pulled from the site. Let me hop back in. Sorry, it's a little hard to switch from the slides back into this with screen share enabled. Um, so I can find how many were actually completed. So, here. Sorry. So if I hop back in here, I can find how many were completed because I know each request has a status. That would be the name of the column as well in the data frame. And if I inspect that status, if that status is done, that would mean that that request is complete. So if I do something like this, it should allow me to take a slice of the data frame and see it would give me another data frame in response that only includes the ones that were done. So I can see here that 3,000, a little over 3,000 requests of the ones that were filed in the last year were completed. If we calculate that, it's something like, I think like 31% of requests that were filed, were submitted in the last year, were also completed, marked as complete in that last year. That doesn't necessarily mean that a request hasn't 100% been completed. There are some intermediate steps for a request, and a request can be an appeal. It can be partially completed. The user may not have marked or the request wasn't correctly marked as completed. But it gives us a general idea of how many requests were actually marked as complete. Um, let's look at what else is on our questions list. So we got how many requests were filed, and then how many requests that were filed were also completed. Which 10 agencies received the most public records requests? So, does anyone have any ideas on how we could get this information? You can feel free to unmute as well. Um, uh, so, each request, actually, let me pull up I'm going to pull up the documentation in another window and share that as well. Mhm. So if I take a look at a individual request, each individual request should have an agency, which is the ID of the agency handling this FOIA request. This is from the documentation that I've linked in the presentation. This is for the requests retrieve endpoint. So if I pass in an individual request, I can get which ID. Similarly, since this data set was pulled from request list, each FOIA request in this data set has an agency ID parameter. It doesn't tell us the name of the particular agency, but it gets us close. So if we looked at the agency endpoint and we do a retrieve on the agency, then we can also get the name of the agency that particular request is associated with. And then if we add that as a column to our data frame, we should be able to associate each request with a particular agency name. And then we can do something like a group by to get how many or what agencies had the most particular requests. So let's see if I can get that working. So yeah, on this pre-canned one. So if you group by the agency field and then sort it by the size, we can get the 10 largest ones. So that gives us something like that. And then if I inspect it, this is the agencies, the top 10 agencies by their number of requests in the data frame. It does only give us the ID, however. If we were to do another query, a API request actually, we would be able to get the agency name for each. So let me just copy that over. Do you have that answer for us? So, no, let's open expire. A second. Authenticate. So this is the agencies that received the most requests in the last year. The FBI received 354 requests. ICE, which very understandably received 120 requests. Department of Homeland Security received 25. Some surprises to me were the Chicago Public Schools received 66 requests. The Virginia Military Institute received 61. And then it goes lower and lower, but there was several state-based agencies that received plenty of requests as well. All right, let's see if I can do let's hop back into the presentation. I'll skip who are the 10 most prolific filers for now. What agencies with more than five requests filed to them have the highest completion rate? Let's see. Let me actually answer Alan's question. Can we make a histogram with pandas based on the CSV? Yeah. Do you want to take a shot at it, or do you have the code space open? If you don't, it would take me a minute. It's been a little while, but I'm happy to share the screen share if you have the code space.
Yeah, just a little easier than typing. I used Pandas in a statistics class about 10 years ago and haven't used it since, so I don't think I'm familiar enough with the API to be
Yeah.
efficient with it.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's been a little while too. That's fine. That is a good idea though. I'm gonna write this down as an idea to follow up on. Or I can look it up. Let's look it up.
Yeah, I do have the code space open, so I'll try working on this in the background while you keep figuring out some more answers.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I'm gonna play around with this next question, which is what agencies with more than five requests filed to them have the highest completion rate? I'm gonna take a shot at this too, because we do already have the agencies with their number of requests. And I know, let's see. And we know how to filter requests by whether or not they're completed with their status. So let's try this. All right, so I was able to get the agencies that had greater than 5 requests. Let's see if I can get them with another column that tells me how many they have done. So I need to count which ones were done. Oh, okay. Um, so let's go back. Um, I was able to find out which agencies had more than 5 requests filed, um, and create another data frame that shows me that or that a series that shows me that that list of agencies and how many requests they had. Um, so it looks like 266 agencies had more than 5 requests. Similarly, I can use the done status and group by the agency to create another column that tells me another series that tells me a information about each agency and how many requests they've actually completed. And then I can merge these two uh, to get kind of uh, the total requests and their done requests. So I can do some kind of calculation on that. So I did a merge here where I merged the series that had greater than 5 and the one that had the numbers for how many they've completed. I merged it along the agency ID because that's going to be the same in both. And then here, this is for calculation. Basically, some of these uh, agencies are not going to have any completed requests. They could have 6 requests, but not have completed any of them. This just says for that data value, instead of making it NA, just make it 0. And then we can calculate another column, which tells us we want, you know, how many they've completed divided by how many they actually filed to give us some percentages. And then this is kind of the most responsive ones. So I, I then sorted these by their completion rate in ascending. So that means the highest percentage completion rate would be at the top and the lowest would be at the bottom. And then I only took the top 10 using head. So this tells me that agency 5559 had 7 requests and all 7 were completed. So that means that com they theoretically completed 100% of their requests that they'd received. Something that to note from this data set is it appears that a lot of these are really low numbers for number of total requests. I kind of expected that because it's really easy to be a really responsive agency if you only ever receive 8 or 9 requests. Um, Although there are like agency 3072 here, they received 19 requests and completed 18 of them, which is certainly more than the bar of 6, which we kind of set already. To get actual agency information for all of these, again, I can do a query for the agency endpoint for each ID here, and it would be able to unmask what the actual name of each agency is here. So let me do that too. So it looks like these were the responsive agencies. So uh, the New York State Division of Homes and Community Renewal received 7 requests and received a completion rate of 100. The Department of Correction, I guess I'll have to do another query to see what state that is from. But it tells me that that one received 6 requests with 100% completion rate. Or I guess I could just do the agency info, uh, the jurisdiction, to give you the jurisdiction there. University, California, Davis, the Chicago Park District. So let me see which one was the, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 4 was the Chicago Park District, maybe was one of the more notable ones here that did 19 requests and replied to 95% of them. Yeah, so that's our answer for the agencies that received more than 5 requests. Which ones were the top 10 most responsive ones? These here. Again, the Department of Correction would probably want to do another query to figure out which jurisdictions those actually come from. Some familiar names in here, though. I filed requests to the Chicago Park District and the Joliet Police Department in the past. These are in Illinois. I don't know about these other ones, specifically the Department of Corrections ones. I suspect that, actually, I don't know who's filing requests to this. Yeah, interesting. I'd like to maybe even dive into who's filing these requests that are more successful on the platform. That'd be interesting to find out. Let's see what other questions. There's a question in the chat. Uh, could a request be made to find how many requests were made versus completed in the state of Massachusetts and received a list of the agencies for the years 2020 to 2025? Let me see. Could a request made? So request made versus completed can certainly be queried. You can do total requests without specifying what the status of the request is. That would capture requests that were completed or have other statuses like needs a fix or something like that. And then the ones that were completed would be marked as done. So you can do that. You can state of Massachusetts. Let's see. All right. Request. The You can list requests by their jurisdiction. The trick here is what the jurisdiction is that's marked on the individual request. You can certainly query the ones that were done in Massachusetts with jurisdiction ID number 1, but I suspect that there are some requests that were marked with their local jurisdiction, whose only their parent jurisdiction would be marked as Massachusetts. For example, I don't know, like the Chicago Police Department, their jurisdiction would be the local jurisdiction, which would be Chicago. And then the parent of Chicago, Illinois would be Illinois. So you would have to do some kind of logic to capture the jurisdictions in that particular, under that particular state. Basically from the parent find the children jurisdictions, and then from that find the requests that were filed to each of those jurisdictions and the state jurisdiction as well. If you're actually trying to get a more broad picture. So you probably have to you would probably have to like iterate through each of those jurisdictions to find a more complete answer. And you can use the date and exclusivity. So you could find a list of agencies between the date January 1st, 2020 and the end of December when it arrives. So you could answer this question. It might be a little bit more of a complex request, mostly because of the way that MuckRock treats our jurisdictions. But this is an answer. This is a question that you could answer. Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm. Alan, did you get anything going with the histogram? Otherwise, I have data on the number of big requesters. So agencies that received more than 25 requests, which ones had a high completion rate, as well as I'll show you how to the top 10 filers on our service.
Yeah, I was able to get Pandas to generate a combination of Pandas and Matplotlib, which were both pre-installed in the base. Was
Yeah.
able to generate a histogram. However, I didn't do that pre-filtering step. So when I bucketed my different values, it was just bucketing based on agency ID. So all I could see was agencies with an ID between 1 and 1,000, had a certain number of requests. So need a little more processing there.
Oh, that's all right. You wanted to like just show off what you've got so far? If not, it's okay. It's totally fine.
Let's see. Do I still have the tab open? Yeah, I do. Sure. I'll share my screen quickly.
Cool.
So my prompt is a little bit messy because I was kind of debugging as I went.
Yeah,
But you can
totally.
see I imported pandas and then read in the CSV that we have in the repo. From there, I um, generated a histogram. Where's my command that actually? Great. I did a histogram here using the agency column. And then using Matplotlib, I was able to generate this PNG image.
All right, cool. Yeah. It's just it's rough, but it's fine. We could do some more processing on it and figure it out.
Yeah,
Um,
so if we want to make a blog post with any kind of wrapped end of year stats, we could use this library to help us generate some images to insert.
yeah, totally. Uh, that was kind of what I wanted to like just open up the floor to if folks wanted to make pull requests on the repo, showing off their own kind of like graph that they made with the data. I totally encourage that. So let's see. I'm gonna get the top 25 as well. This should be pretty straightforward because it's the same as all the same processing as the five. I just want to filter for more than 25. So let me do that really quickly. And I'll do some better printing. see. Okay, so these figures change as I expected when we shifted from 5 requests to 25 requests. So the responsiveness rate dropped a bit. These are the top 10 most responsive agencies and how many requests they received, along with the number of requests that were marked as complete, and then their completion rate. Um, I have my suspicions as to why the Chicago Public Schools is. Have a feeling that they were sued, and I know who sued them for them to be an outlier with the 75% completion rate. Uh, but yeah, interesting nonetheless. I also noticed a shift with um, bigger states with more population receiving a greater number of requests, more resources probably to answer public records requests. Um, I noticed that many of the people who receive the most requests, like the FBI and ICE and so on, don't appear in the most responsive ones as well. But that there are other federal agencies that do appear on the list, and I think that's an interesting takeaway. That I wonder what um, I mean, I have my inklings into the like institutional reasons why certain federal agencies are more responsive than others. But it's still interesting to take a look at. All right, let me end off.